why did so many of them go out and say all this? And why did so many of them text me? Well, part of it is born out of frustration. There's a new Democratic school of thought that says Trump must be fought and everything he does must be scrutinized, that it's important, like Gavin Newsom has tried to be tough, to go after him, and that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And a lot of Democrats haven't really come to terms with something we've talked about here so many times. Joe Biden's mental decline, his cognitive decline was real, but there's still some Democrats in denial about that. And they look at Biden being forced off the ticket and his position in history redefined by the way his obvious mental decline played out as an injustice, that it showed that the right, through the media, through politicians, through social media, could hound a Democratic president with, in their view, false or exaggerated claims about mental capacity or about health and succeed politically. And so what they're saying is, here's this vacuum. Trump is not having daily public events last week of August, so let's go out there and be tough and aggressive. And I think there's some of that. But some of it is different. Some of it is based on the reality that they cannot deal with Donald Trump. They cannot deal with what is going on. Trump himself put out a fundraising appeal to take advantage of this just this morning. Says the fake news media and the radical left tried to spread lies saying your favorite president, Donald J. Trump, was dead or sick. Can you believe it? Disgraceful. Let me tell you something. I'm more alive than ever. And that's the problem for the left. They're concerned, really, that Donald Trump is, in fact, more alive than ever. For a lot of these people, again, not just a tactic, they really convinced themselves that Trump was dead. They really did. Musing about body doubles, cover-ups, trying to figure out how to piece it all together, just like they did for Paul McCartney in the 60s. It all happened, though, in the face of contradictory public evidence. Trump did that 3-hour cabinet meeting. Trump was out and about on social media. Trump went out and played golf. They still wanted to say it because they're having trouble dealing with the reality that Trump is, even taking a break a little bit for a late summer slowdown, Trump is, in fact, continuing to dominate our politics. Taking a week off and recharging a little bit before the fall, that's normal. That's what millions of Americans do. And of course, Trump's staff, a lot of them were off. And so there's less opportunity to be fully staffed doing events. And I will say, there are legitimate health questions about Donald Trump, right? He acknowledged that he had some problems with his legs. He's put out some medical information. He's older. He's got bruises on his hands, not fully explained for a lot of folks, the swollen legs, a history of being at best opaque, sometimes misleading about medical disclosures. The press, you've heard me say this before, has to be vigilant. It's warranted for any president, particularly an older one, and given the long tradition in this country of cover-ups of presidential health problems. It's not just Joe Biden. The press has to be vigilant. They cannot be like the kid in that Bruce Willis movie who saw dead people. They have to be direct and question. And this president needs to be more forthcoming about his health, no doubt. But this was an indulgence. Even after Trump reappeared and made it clear he was not only alive, but seemingly in perfectly good health for a man his age, the New York Times dismissed the rumor and made fun of it in a long piece. But they also luxuriated in the Freudian comforts that the left needs, reflecting a left that hasn't consistently figured out how to beat Donald Trump in a decade. Okay, this, what I call the obituary wish, is the opium of the perpetually outmaneuvered. Donald Trump doesn't win every time, no doubt. But this late summer delirium, the conspiracy theories aside, here's the sober fact. Trump is alive and he's politically on the march. And in most realms, not all, political opponents for Donald Trump remain at least a couple steps behind him. Now, look, he may not succeed eventually. Real questions right now about the economy, not just now, but over the next couple of years and between now and the midterms. He's grappling with the lack of leverage over Putin and Xi. That's a huge issue for him. And he's taking a big risk on policy on healthcare, all of which could lead to a really bad midterms. I'm not telling you Donald Trump is definitely going to have a successful presidency, but he is pressing the advantage. And honest Democrats I talk to say, unless the courts intervene or Congress, Republicans in Congress change their mind, Donald Trump will continue to get his way. He's getting his way on the optics of law and order. He's turned DC into a deterrent stage. He's using the federal forces to put down a theory that cops on the corners is better than quibbling about statistics about crime. On tariffs and trade, again, it's up to the courts, but so far, He has more effectively than I think almost anyone could imagine, except maybe Trump himself and some of his top aides. He's found a way to use the tariffs to leverage himself all sorts of ways with other countries. Now, look, prices may be going up. We see some signs of that, but it remains a potent talking point for him that Democrats can't really decide what to say about it. Immigration, you all know the facts there. Simple frame, he's controlling the border. Democrats continue to audition different adjectives to criticize him, but that's another winning issue where he's on the march. On the budget, he's engaged in brinksmanship. Not even all the Republicans are comfortable with it, but Trump is comfortable having fights over spending, and his opponents are bringing footnotes to a knife fight where Trump is determined to demonstrate control over the federal budget. On the courts, again, Trump's on the march. He's won more than he's lost at the Supreme Court. He continues to litigate. When he loses at the lower courts, he goes to the Supreme Court. He's trying to do that on the Fed. He's going to try to do that on tariffs. Again, Trump is on the march. And of course, on redistricting, you all know that Trump has edged out Democrats there. The maps and the numbers work to Republicans' favor. He's being aggressive. So what is all this talk about Trump being dead or sick about? It's a mass hysteria and speculation about his health and mortality that, to me, is really a misplaced coping mechanism of sorts. The people who are talking about this thinking by calling in the coroner, they're winning. In fact, what they're really doing is writing another scene for Trump, the showrunner of his presidency and of our political debate. Wishing him away has always been what Trump's critics do. It's their comfort food. They write long think pieces for the last decade about how Trump's political luck is not going to sustain, that he can't possibly continue to have political victories. That's been written over and over again for 10 years. He doesn't win every time, but he right now is on a political roll. The indictments and the ballot fights to keep him off the ballot in the last election cycle, that was another way. They were trying to cope with Donald Trump by going in a different direction, by doing things that have clearly been part of a backlash. And now they're having what are in effect digital seances saying, well, Trump's going to die, and so he'll be off our hands. Politics and journalism, it's not sorcery. It's a street fight, and the rules are written in pencil. Trump himself draws outside the lines, to be sure, but he stays on the page for the most part. Meanwhile, a lot of Trump's opponents are spending time now arguing about the shape and size of the eraser. Why is this McCartney parallel so biting? Why is it so resonant for me and for so many people who I've mentioned it to? McCartney was not alive. He wasn't. He was dead. But he was in the studio, and the rumors of his death enlarged him, made him a bigger figure, a larger-than-life figure. And the Beatles, of course, went on to great success after all of this. Each death watch gives Trump something he not only loves but benefits from, the spotlight. The grievance, the fresh claims that Trump can make, as he did in that fundraising email I read to you, of indestructibility. Trump's alchemy is pretty clear. He converts disbelief into dominance. The more his enemies fantasize about his absence, the more present he actually becomes. What would be a healthier approach? Treat Trump's health like any other issue. Ask for disclosure, press for disclosure, apply the same scrutiny to Trump as you would to anybody else, and deal with the tangible government policies that affect the real lives of real people. How much does stuff cost? Where is crime? And is what Trump doing on crime effective? How is he dealing with trying to end the wars in Israel and Gaza and Ukraine and Russia? Deal with the anxieties of the public. And there's plenty of that. There's lots of polling out this week, including in the Wall Street Journal, that shows how concerned people are about what's going on in their daily lives. This incident, with echoes of what happened with Paul McCartney, demonstrates, I think, once again, that the left is still trying to figure out how to grapple with Donald Trump. They know, in all likelihood, he will not be a presidential candidate or a vice presidential candidate in 2028. But for the foreseeable future, in this short term now, they still haven't learned the lesson. An obituary wish is not a plan. It's a lullaby. It's distraction that's keeping the left from truly grappling with what Donald Trump is doing. They want him to be dead, but like Paul McCartney, he's still alive. Around 2020, not that long ago, the American left pushed very hard into kids' books. They got all sorts of titles onto the bookshelves of schools, things like Activist Baby, Woke Baby, Anti-Racist Baby, Non-Binary Baby. You get the point. Well, our new sponsor thought if schools are doing that, they're doing the whole political kids' books thing, Why shouldn't other topics, other concepts be included? So out of that came Capitalist Babies. Capitalist Baby is a fun, illustrated A to Z kids book. It's on sale now. Go to Amazon.com. Capitalist Baby, beautifully illustrated. It's a little tongue-in-cheek. A clever A to Z book for kids and parents who love business and capitalism. The best part is Capitalist Baby is optimistic. It celebrates the ideas of American entrepreneurship and business, and it's instructive without any preaching. Real business concepts are woven into the charming text and the illustrations. Capitalist Baby is your alternative to those leftist kids books that were so popular with some after 2020. You can buy Capitalist Baby now for yourself, for your kids, grandkids. Give it as a gift. It's a delightful read that deserves a spot on your bookshelf. For the first time in human history, there's an A to Z alphabet book for people who believe in free enterprise, entrepreneurship, and commerce. Go now, buy a copy or maybe 3. Search Capitalist Baby on Amazon.com today.